If you've been watching channels like this one for a while, you're probably aware that battery electric vehicles have pretty low maintenance costs when compared to a similar internal combustion engine vehicle. And the reasons for that are fairly obvious. There's no internal combustion engine, so there's no engine oil to change, no spark plugs to change, no head gaskets, and no exhaust or emissions system. Then there's less wear on other components. For example, while friction brakes are used in an emergency to slow electric cars down, just as they are any other car, and electric cars use traditional brakes for the parking or the emergency brake, the vehicle's onboard computer tries wherever possible to use regenerative braking in most normal driving situations, meaning that the brake pad wear is less than it would be for a given mileage in an internal combustion engine vehicle. And then, of course, there's fuel, which costs a lot less for any given distance, primarily because electricity costs a lot less than petrol. But just how much should you expect to spend on maintaining and owning an electric car? To give you an idea, here's what I've spent on my Chevrolet Bolt EV, my 2017 Bolt EV LT, in almost 3 years of ownership. I say 3 years, but the lease technically runs out in 3 months' time, so it's 2 years and 9 months. First up, there's the fuel. In 48,000 miles or so that I've driven, I've averaged about 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour. That equates to 15,000 kilowatt hours of electricity all told. If we assume that I only ever charge from the charging station at home, then we'd be looking at a total of around 11.5 cents per kilowatt hour on average, because I pay extra to ensure I get renewable energy, or $1,725 all in. That's the equivalent of a rounded up 3.6 cents per mile driven. But wait, let's not forget the long distance trips that I've made since getting the car in August 2017. It's a lot harder to figure out total costs for this, as honestly, I'm not very good at bookkeeping, but let's assume that a generous 15,000 of the miles that I've made so far were road trip miles, a figure that I think is probably way too high, but let's keep this as it makes things a little easier. And by that I mean using rapid charging stations. If we assume a charging cost that averages out to 25 cents per kilowatt hour at a DC quick charging station, I know some charging networks are cheaper and some more expensive, then we're looking at $1,172 for those 15,000 miles. Again, I've rounded up. If we add that to the cost of the other 33,000 miles of non-rapid charging at home, we're left with a total cost of $2,358 rounded up, for a more realistic 4.9 cents rounded down per mile. The temptation at this point would be to add in insurance, but honestly, I've found that my electric car is about the same to insure here in the US as a comparable petrol car, so I'm not going to add that here. Plus, insurance is something that's pretty subjective, as it depends on you, your driving, how much you want to cover, etc., as well as your job. So how about servicing? Well, servicing is a neat one because there's very little required, as I already noted at the top of this video. While it's worth taking manufacturer's advice when it comes to servicing, there's still not a whole lot to worry about. Because I'm leasing, I did actually have 2 free services bundled into my car's service schedule, but even then they amounted to little more than a visual check and a tyre rotation, which is what, $25 to $50 worth. New cabin filters every 22,500 miles or 2 years are also pretty cheap, $20 to $40, depending on which ones you choose. As I've already stated, brakes tend to last a really long time, so in 48,000 miles, I've not had to worry about replacements. I should note, to be fair, that I did have one major failure related to the braking system, namely a failing in the anti-lock brake circuits that would have cost a fair penny had the car not still been under warranty. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I know for sure how much that would have cost, but I'm guessing somewhere between $500 and maybe $1,000, so that's a rough ballpark estimate. The only other major cost from a dealership point of view is the strange noise that emanated from the front suspension that we still haven't got to the bottom of. Again, I didn't pay for any of those inspections and repairs as they were honoured by the dealership, because I actually first noted it to them before the warranty expired, and we only got it checked out after the warranty expired, and we still haven't got to the bottom of it, but we're gonna look at it when we go back to normal. The other costs, well, that would have to be tyres. So far, I've managed to just about keep the stock summer tyres for the car, while I have gone through one set of Nokia and Hakkapeliitta tyres. It's actually 1.5 sets because I got a puncture. So at $410 each, let's say I've spent about $2,460 on tyres thus far. If you total that all up and the replacement tyres, and we're just left shy of $2,500 for maintenance in 3 years, or 5 cents per mile. I didn't add in the services because they were free. Total cost for me, not including insurance, to drive my Chevrolet Bolt EV for 48,000 miles has been about 10 cents per mile if you include fuel and consumables and servicing. And you remember that that's a cost analysis that's pretty pessimistic in terms of fueling costs. On top of that, of course, we could add the monthly lease cost and insurance. But as I've said, I'm looking at a purely day-to-day cost on top of what you'd normally pay for financing and insurance. Although, if you are curious, my personal lease is about $277 per month for 15,000 miles per year. So I'm over lease. My insurance is about $100 per month, but that's because I've opted for a super low deductible and all the bells and whistles, a fully comprehensive policy, and I've added a lot of extra coverage due to my job. I drive for my job and obviously I make videos about cars. I could probably cut it to about 1/3 of it if I so wished. Add all of that together and I'm paying about $520 per month, or 36 cents rounded up per mile all in. If you're driving an electric car, I'd love to know what your costs per mile are and how it relates to the car that you had previously. Let me know your figures in the comments below if you are willing to share. And one note, I know I'm over my lease mile, but I'm going to buy the car, so I've not included that calculation in this. That's it. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.